Assalamu alaikum. You're watching Views and News, and I'm Faisal Rahman, live from our Islamabad studios. Today we'll be talking about the SCO, Shanghai Cooperation Organization. There was this meeting that was held in the last week, and a lot of developments, in fact, were seen there as well. Now, the basic questions out of that recent development. Number one, is India being isolated in the region? Is India being isolated in the region? That is going to be the first question today in our program. The second one, did SCO meeting dent the Indian hegemony? We will talk about the causes and the issues regarding that as well. Number three, is Modi losing the diplomatic plot for some reason? We'll be talking about that aspect also. And we will also be talking about another very important factor, that is about the India's aggressive posturing that is causing loss of credibility at international platforms. And the last important one, that is about our emerging new blocs in making, because we always talk about new alignments, new blocs, new countries, in a way that those who were with the American group or with the Western alliance, now they are shifting towards the East. Example of Turkey for that matter, even Pakistan, Iran, so many other countries. So what exactly is happening on that front? To talk about that, we have with us in our studio, let me introduce you to our panelists. On my right is Dr. Professor Zafar Nawaz Jaspal Saab, needs no introduction, is an expert on foreign affairs and IR. Thank you very much, Dr. Saab, for your time. And we have with us Ambassador Ali Sarwar Naqvi Saab. He's a former senior diplomat. Sir, thank you very much for your time as well. And we have with us Air Vice Marshal retired Ikramullah Bhatti Saab, who's a senior defense analyst. Thank you so much, Bhatti Saab, for your presence as well. Dr. Zafar Nawaz Jaspal Saab, we always talk about the SCO, but currently what we have witnessed, a very, very important factor, and that is when Moeed Yusuf Saab, the National Security Advisor to the Prime Minister, he was sitting and there was this flag at the back. And interestingly, I would have actually put the other flag in which we would have actually claimed the Indian occupied Kashmir also, but that was a perfect in which this area was shown as a disputed territory. You can see that map on the screen also. It is very visible. And on this map, the moment the Indian National Security Advisor, Ajit Doval, had a look, so sir, he did not attend the meeting, walked out. Let's start off from there, sir.
I think that if you see that India has been struggling to establish its relevance within the regional forum, and especially we have seen that because of this stubborn attitude, SAARC ceased to exist practically today. And in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, we were expecting that India would behave, because in the charter of the SCO very clearly mentioned the state will not debate their or not raise their bilateral disputes. Of course, they can avail what we call it the sideline meetings option to discuss their bilateral issue, as we have seen Indians did with the Chinese, their defense minister as well as their foreign minister. In the last week they met also. But in the case of Pakistan, if you see, since 2019 February, we have been seeing that India or the Modi government or his associates, this seems a little bit puzzled or confused. If you recall, in 2016, Prime Minister Modi said that they are going to isolate Pakistan.
Yep.
In the last 4 years, if we critically examine which state has been isolated, of course, in the 21st century or in 2020, it's impossible to isolate even a tiny state. Pakistan and India are big regional actors and big states. But if you assess which state has been isolated, I think India seems more isolated, especially in the Euro-Asian organizations, in the South Asian organization. Even it will be going to be isolated in the Southeast Asian organization, where India has been now, you can say, or its relevance is there, or it seems comfortable, where you find Quad, where the Americans or their allies are there. So in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which is, if you see, they have not it became more visible. India refused to participate in the joint SCO military exercises as
Yes.
well. Earlier, India was, Pakistan and India became a member recently as a full member of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and both were participating in their military exercises under this what we call a joint exercise for combating the menace of terrorism. But if you see in this context today, India refused, and I think Ajit Doval's walkout, it has exposed India's frustration. It has exposed India that they are losing, or the international community has been realizing, because this is a political map. They can also show it. We are not saying it's our legal map. We are saying political map. And the catch here is why they are more frustrated. You have to, on the one side, we have shown, we are always showing it as a disputed treaty,
Yes.
even earlier as well. But this time there is a catch, because they annexed it, and then if you see further up Ladakh, we have let it
Dr. Saab, even
that is a problem.
Azad Kashmir as well as Gilgit Baltistan was added in there.
Yeah.
Because once I was looking at the map and there was this corner and a tail. I said, well, what's wrong with that? Maybe
So
some
this is
printing
a
issue or
puzzling,
something, but that was the area they had added. Yeah.
So India's internal dynamics are such as that Modi government or his party, though they are very much cashing this Hindutva, and they are still, but in the next coming days, you are going to witness their Bihar election. You are going to see their other state elections. In these coming state elections, if they cannot raise anti-Pakistan, anti-Muslim, then Hindutva forces will not be getting the vote as they have been enjoying the support of the Hindutva forces or anti-Pakistan forces since 2016. We have started seeing this mantra of anti-Pakistan or this like jingoism or warlike or border issues in both states. India has been started using it. I mean, BJP has started using it since the UP provincial election, when first time they used the surgical strike, and then in the 2019 their entire victory was based on it. And the same thing, it was a
They
deliberate
have not been
move.
able to deliver on various accounts, and they've been actually told that certain things are not possible. Now, Ambassador Saab, one more area, because whenever we talk about SARC, it seems that it is a null and void kind of an organization, which is useless. Primarily, when you talk to anybody other than the Pakistanis or the Indians, they would say it is primarily because of the issue between these two countries. Pakistan and India, despite the kind of trade potential or otherwise, it is totally, I mean, it's useless, let's put it this way. But sir, when you talk about SCO, you have got members like Russia, you've got countries like China, then you have got the entire belly of Russia over there, all these Central Asian states, and then Pakistan, then India, and then on top there are certain member states also. Now, sir, that means you're talking about a decent number of almost more than 50% of the global population, sir, if I'm not wrong. I mean, just add China, Russia, Pakistan, India, and the other regional countries. Despite that, sir, the Indians, I mean, the kind of attitude they had towards SARC, they can't have the similar attitude towards SCO. Because at some stage, maybe they'll say, okay, you stay in the other camp, we can move on without you as well. Sir.
Yeah, actually, Faisal, when the membership of India and Pakistan was agreed upon in the SCO, the Indians were at that time fully active in their offensive of getting Pakistan isolated. And the Russians and the Chinese both felt, the two big powers of this region, that both India and Pakistan should be made members. So we were concurrently made, we were together made members of the SCO. So you see, in any case, Faisal, I think this thing about isolation is just a sensational media term and media concept, because big countries are not isolated. They can't be isolated. I mean, how can you, there is no mechanism whereby you completely sideline a state. This state is a player in the politics of that region, in the politics of the world, of the global politics as well. So isolation is something that
It's a very strong word.
doesn't really have
Fit in diplomacy also,
any relevance in reality. So here in SCO, we were being asked to keep our fingers crossed, because India might not may prevail over China and Russia to keep Pakistan out. That did not happen. And in subsequent meetings also, you know, you remember the UFA meeting
Yep.
where the prime ministers of India and Pakistan met. Of course, it didn't go very well for Pakistan, mainly because I think we did not pursue our case well and did not make a good representation. But that's another story. We were there, and we have been subsequently with SCO, and the position of Pakistan is very strong with China, of course. They are our age-old friends ever since the two countries have been dealing with each other. And Russia has opened up towards Pakistan in a big way. Russia has had military exercises with Pakistan. Russia has had many exchanges with Pakistan. Way back in 2015, their defense minister came, and you know, since then we have not looked backward. We have always looked ahead for better relations with Russia. So the position of Pakistan is very strong and very good. And India is still pursuing that very irrational approach of boycotting, of ostracizing, of isolating. That will never work. Ajit Doval has made a spectacle of himself by just walking out. I mean, the map.
He was trying to register a protest. I don't know why, but the point is, sir, that
The map is, I mean, yeah, we have openly launched that map. It shows the disputed territory in a very clear, categorical fashion. And I think
and when he told the Russian authorities to remove that or you know asked them to do it,
they did not
They
agree.
did not do it. I mean, this was stated by the foreign minister,
Yeah,
and he said, well,
they did not agree.
Yes.
And they said that that's not our concern. Therefore, the Indians,
do you think, sir, if Pakistan was a very close ally of the USA the way we were, and we were also a part of SCO, India, which is very close to the Russians, do you think in that during that time period or while having those kind of circumstances, you think the Russians would have done it?
that's a moot question. Now, it is true that we have suffered on Kashmir because of that. You know, when the Soviet Union was
You always opposed.
was
Always
in
favored the Indians.
Whenever the matter came up in the Security Council about Kashmir in the 60s and the 70s, the Soviet Union used to veto the very consideration of the issue. So in those days, Russia was very partisan. In any case, I think in the 21st century, now, ever since, you know, diplomacy has taken this turn of blurring of blocks, blurring of tight alignments. You know, we used to be good friends with the US. Now it is with a strategic partner with India. But the US wants to remain engaged with Pakistan. Similarly, China is our good friend, but it also has a very big trade
With the Indians?
relationship with India. And Russia is opening up to Pakistan. I have myself been twice or thrice to Russia to attend the Moscow Conference on International Security, invited by the Russian Defense Ministry. So, you know, the lines are blurred. All countries are dealing with each other, and now there is no question of what India wants to get done, that would be accepted. So when Ajit Doval objected to the map, the Russians did not concede.
That's why he moved on. Sir, one quick comment before I move on to Bhatti Saab. That is, sir, that when Soviet Union was disintegrated, so many other countries, were formed. The southern side, and then you're talking about the
Eastern
western side, as you know, so many other areas. Now, sir, primarily Vladimir Putin, because I've read a lot about him. This man was in army, was in KGB as a colonel, and later on he headed the KGB president, the prime minister, one of the most powerful, I think, and the man with the vision and with the concept. He's cool as cucumber, but when it comes to the real deal, I mean, this man knows his business.
Yes.
Now, sir, Vladimir Putin always, disliked Pakistan, because Pakistan played a very major role along with the Americans and the Afghan Taliban, in sort of disintegrating. We never wanted to disintegrate USSR. We always wanted that there should be a balance of power. But because of the invasion in Afghanistan and the kind of role and the circumstances, again, they had to roll back and they had to move away. And economic issues, they erupted, and this is the result now. So, do you think that man has changed his mind, or still he has that somewhere deep down that, this country did not
No, Russians
do
have been,
good to us?
Russians have been very, very harsh with us in the past. In the days of the Soviet Union, when the
U-2 incident.
U-2 plane flew from Peshawar, from Badawar, the Russians said that they will make an example of Pakistan. They threatened Pakistan even from the point of view of taking military action. And
they meant it, by the way, sir.
Yes, there was this very famous South Asian expert in the Russian Institute of Strategic Studies, Dr. Gankovsky. Dr. Gankovsky was very, I think, Jaspal Sahib, you would know, you would recall. He was very, very bitter against Pakistan. And then there was this Zamir Kabulov, their ambassador, who was known for his. And I was told in Moscow that there are a whole lot of Indophiles in the Kremlin who don't want good relations with Pakistan. But all that has changed, you see. Over the years, the Russian generation of diplomats, of experts, they have all changed. And new people have come. And they don't have the same prejudices against Pakistan as the older generation used to have. So now the Russians are quite well disposed, and Putin is a very clever and realistic strategist, as you say. Now he sees that Pakistan should not be alienated, though he maintains good relations with India, but he does not want to alienate Pakistan. And that is to our advantage, and that is the correct approach to take. And Russia, I am glad, has changed its position.
I mean, that's great. So, quick comment and then over to you, sir.
I just want to add into it. It's not only in Russia, in Pakistan, there is also same mindset. If you recall that in I think Ambassador Saab is in a better position too. When I was working way back in 2000 at the Institute of Strategic Study, we have a former Secretary Ambassador Tanveer Ahmad Khan. Late Tanveer Ahmad Khan was our chairman, and he called us and he said, we have to open up with the Russians. We invited a Russian scholar in the institute for a nuclear dialogue. And immediately our intelligence bureau started writing the memos about us all. And then still, even today, if you meet a Russian, still there is a mindset in our organization. Same is in the Russia. Here, if you see, we are more comfortable today to deal with the Americans rather than even the Chinese.
Correct.
Though our entire interest have been drifted towards the Chinese.
Absolutely.
Same is with the Russians. I think that it take a time, but if you see the Putin, which you have raised it, if we can do individual level of analysis as a student of international relations and try to study his characteristic, I think he's a very cool-headed strategist. And he go with that.
He always has a very meaningful smile on his face.
Yeah, and
whenever he is under pressure.
Yeah, and he understands that if he has to remain relevant, because Russia has been limited to the Europe now. And if they have to remain as a Euro-Asian state, and in the Euro-Asian, India has ditched them. India has moved out. And which state is available in this South Asia,
absolutely.
and especially in the state which has a connection not only in South Asia, but Euro-Asia and Southern Asia and West Asia.
Absolutely.
So that's the reason that
All
they
right.
have to believe. So Pakistan is in a good position, provided I
You
say
need to play your cards
that
well,
whether our, I'm not talking about intelligentsia, I'm talking about our people who are sitting behind, what is their mindset. If they have a training in the American institutes,
Then
still they
obviously
love with
their
that.
inclination
That is
would
the
be towards
problem.
that side.
Not only Russia, in our country as well.
Now, even a couple of points. First of all, let's talk about the new alignments, because now it seems very obvious when you look at the interests of Turkey or Iran for that matter. Now, Turkey has been engaged with the Greece issue. The French are supporting them. They are going to sell about 18 Rafales to the Greece, despite their economy is like really shrinking and is in a is in dire straits at the moment, also planning to sell a couple of frigates for their surveillance and all. Now, so Turkey has a very, very straightforward posture. Whether is it for the Libyans or the other party there, or towards the Egyptians, or the Greek, for that matter, or though it's a NATO member, but it seems it's the odd one out. When you talk about Iran, we all know what's going on with them. You talk about certain other countries, or China, or CPEC for that matter. So, sir, all these countries, I mean, a lot of signatories are there for OBOR. But, sir, there is a lot of support for this project, because when the Chinese are investing left, right and center, every country is getting some sort of a benefit out of it. Do you think, sir, now high time for the new alliances, or alliances are already, they have been made, or what exactly is going on that front?
Well, I think alliances are taking shape, and this process is quite discernible, and by the behavior of various countries at the international level and bilaterally within the regions that they are in. And as you just mentioned, while Turkey and Greece have historical hostilities, and the Americans have been playing on it of late, the moment Turkey started to behave more and more independently. And of course, there is Iran, then there is Yemen, and of course China has gained a lot more prominence in this current decade. And Russia, of course, is on its way to regain its lost glory. So with all this, we find that on one side it is the Americans who are trying desperately to sustain their status of sole superpower. So this new alignment is clearly emerging. We are talking about India and Russia, and we are talking of Russia and Pakistan. I think while Russians may have a historical suspicion or some hostility remaining with Pakistan, but while Pakistan joined the American camp, Sito, Cento, and Bada Bear and the U2 incident, I think Pakistan did get its share of hostility from Russia, because most of our troubles from the western border were essentially emanating out of Russia through Afghanistan. And I think whatever Pakistan did for its own interest, the Russians equally reacted, and I guess there is no baggage remaining now to settle the scores, and there is a new beginning.
But even there was a time when they wanted the access to the hot waters. Now we are inviting them to get there. Because of the problem in Afghanistan, I mean, everything seems to be at a standstill.
Certainly, because you see, the Americans have clearly indicated their inclination towards India now, and Pakistan is no longer the closest ally of the Americans. While we still remain relevant, while they still continue to declare that Pakistan has a important role to play, but the fact is, and which is quite evident, that the Americans are far more inclined towards India now, and the Indians are equally playing their cards wherein they are showing their willingness to be played against China. And of course, as long as the Americans are stuck in Afghanistan, Pakistan will continue to be relevant for them. And I just wonder that when the Americans have hopefully left Afghanistan and there is no American soldier over there, would America be still interested in Pakistan
Sir,
the way it is?
Now that is a very important point.
Today?
Now, sir, when you look at Afghanistan and the role of the Indians there, and we all understand what's going on. But now, sir, there's another problem, and that is about the approach. It seems that once the Americans would vacate, and I'm sure Donald Trump, if he wins the next election, he is not going to give them $7 to $10 billion a year to look after their day-to-day expense, primarily, whether you need to pay the government employees or whatever. That vacuum needs to be filled for a certain time period, sir, because Afghanistan doesn't have an economy as such, and it will take time. What sort of a scenario is that, sir?
We have to not forget, in the last 4-5 years, if you see in Afghanistan, there are different dialogue processes. One is trilateral, in which Moscow, Islamabad and Kabul and instead of Kabul, they have a Taliban. Same is with the Beijing. So I think that the regional states like China, as well as the Russia, Central Asians, Pakistan, of course, they have to take the responsibility of the Afghanistan. Americans definitely, but the Americans present in the Afghanistan, as you said, and the investment in Afghanistan, there is a very interesting and revealing picture which we have seen in the last 3-4 days, especially in the newspapers. What was that? Mr. Pompeo was standing with the Afghan,
Yeah.
whom they were saying that they are the terrorists, they are and it was one analyst had brought it another picture that one is his, and earlier in 1984 Reagan was sitting.
Ronald
with the
Reagan, yes.
So what is this? This is an entirely different and interesting sort of a development, and in such a situation. But we have to not forget, if you see, Americans recently attempted to create a linkage between the Central Asian, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and this way. They have used the word. They are still reviving here and there with the TAPAI or these kind of the investment. But Russians are disturbed because they think Central Asia is their backyard. It's very interesting that this Central Asian corridor of the BRI, Russians are not disturbed with from the Chinese, whatever the reason could be. But the Russians are very much sensitive if the Americans' presence is there. Maybe after the 2014, the Crimea incident. And in this transforming, what we say, the new realignment has shaped now. And we have to live with this new realignment. Of course, it's good we can maintain a balancing or adopt a balancing tactics.
That should be the way
Yeah,
forward,
we
yeah.
try to make a balance with the Russia, China, and the United States. But are they going to accept it? I think the Chinese want you to become more clear around your strategic
Dr. Sabin, when we
partnership.
talk about the
Same is with
alignments-
the Americans. Americans are what has happened at the LAC. Basically, Indians try to show their China's military posture, and if you see the infrastructure which the Indians gradually built on this, in order to prove that they have a China military posture, that has ended up into a border clash. And the way the in the Indo-Pacific strategy of the Americans, you don't have a space. Read all this. This is only a minor where they say that they use you for their withdrawal. And in that context, of course, we should maintain our good relation with the United States. I'm not articulating this or publicizing that we should distance. We should not go like a Cold War sort of a mentality with this alliance or with that. But we have, these are the realities, we have to live with those realities.
Ambassador, do you think that during the times, I mean, I'm talking about the 70s, even prior to that, even 60s, but you know, Pakistan's involvement was after that, once the Afghanistan was invaded. Primarily, sir, do you think Pakistan could have kept a balance between the Russians and the Americans, but it was in our favor because, you know, whenever you sit with the senior retired officers of those times, you know, when they were serving, they were saying, you know, that's really suited us. And Russians are right out there to invade Pakistan and go wherever they wanted to. So that was an opportunity which Pakistan availed, Ziaul Haq Sahab availed, and then on top, you know, whatever happened after that, that obviously it was supposed to happen. I mean, there was a lot of issue in that. But sir, looking at that particular equation, you think we could have done it or no? We would have been with one party 100%.
Well, there were a number of reasons that we could not have done it. Why? Because the Russians, the Soviet Union, had a treaty of friendship, with peace and friendship with India, which was a very strong bilateral arrangement.
They had a defense agreement as well, sir?
Article 10 of
I think of the treaty, there was a provision in the treaty.
Yes.
There was a provision in the treaty. I don't remember the article,
Article
but,
10.
but there was a provision for defense cooperation as well. So that was one. Secondly, we still were benefiting a lot from American military aid, American economic aid. So, and the Americans were happy to give it to us. So, this was already something that we had an advantage. And therefore, when the Soviet intervention took place in Afghanistan, you see, I had just come back from a posting, and within a few days I was posted as Director of Afghanistan, right when this happened. So the entire picture changed. you know, Mr. Agha Shahi was the foreign minister, and every day there would be new visitors from abroad, various foreign ministers, even prime ministers coming, and Shahi Sahab was of course leading the Pakistani side. So we shot into prominence, and that was at that time a very good strategy. The Indians, Indira Gandhi tried to keep a balance. She made no statement about Soviet intervention in Afghanistan. She kept quiet, and because of that the Americans were quite unhappy with India at that time. So I think we probably at that time, given those circumstances, we took the right decision to join the Americans and to work with them for fighting against, you know, in the UN. By the way, when I went there in early 80s, we used to have a resolution against Soviet intervention in Afghanistan in the General Assembly, and every year we used to score, you know, more than 120 votes every time. So, and at that time the General Assembly had about 150 members. So, a large majority of the membership would be voting against the Soviet Union, and that was of great satisfaction to the Americans, and the Americans were very happy with Pakistan. So, it was a kind of arrangement that worked both ways and was good for us.
So it was suitable for us during that time period.
Yeah. Now
to do what we did.
Yeah. And now what I told you about the Indophiles and all that in Kremlin, the other reason is that the Indians have developed this partnership with America, and most diplomats and the establishment in Russia does not like that. They are quite unhappy that Indians have gone back on their friendship with Russia. So that also is a very important factor, and therefore now the realignments and the reshaping as is being taking place now, as we talked about, is the order of the day, and there you are.
All right. Now, Evim Sab, the current mood of Modi, the mindset of Ajit Doval, and what is happening inside India, I mean, we all know. Maybe the Western media is not showing it the way they should have actually. But still looking at the Kashmir issue and the Article 370 or 35A or otherwise, you know, the problems the Muslims are facing, or the minorities primarily they are facing in India. Do you think, sir, the overall this aggressive posturing of India primarily is leading them nowhere? And rather a lot of criticism, a lot of articles I have read, I mean, those papers or publishers never used to write against India. But now you end up reading those articles which are very balanced, and they tell you exactly what's going on out there. And it seems that either Modi is confused, or maybe the kind of promises he had earlier made regarding the economic recovery and so on and so forth, I mean, that is overturned as well, because they are in negative growth at the moment, sir. And it is not 24%, by the way. Another Indian corrected, it is around 32% decline in the GDP.
Well, you see, Indians have been hoping to leverage their position, be it the Indian market, be it the Indian diaspora, be it the Indian relevance vis-a-vis China, and also the image that Modi had created in the eyes of his voters, that India has already become a regional power and aspiring to become a global power. And he, under the momentum of that impression that he had created, he had to pursue such like policies. And you see, when we talk of the role of the Indians vis-a-vis Kashmir at the international level, lately they attempted the UN to have the Kashmir resolution removed as something which is outdated, no longer relevant. Of course, it was befittingly answered by the Pakistani representative there, and it was not agreed to. And now that we in the SCO, when the Russians refused to accept the Indian objections, I think the Russians would have wholeheartedly relied on the UN Charter and the UN resolutions, Security Council resolutions, as to the the disputed status of that territory, and that is how they could conveniently refuse to accept Indian demand. So, with this we can say that the understanding or appreciation of the Indian position vis-a-vis occupied Kashmir, vis-a-vis their own minorities is now dawning on the world, and now they are getting to see it more and more, and we see it being reflected in various reports of the UN institutions, and of course several articles written, several diplomats, parliamentarians, think tanks talking about it. But unfortunately, Mr. Modi has created that mindset, that momentum, which I think it is now very difficult for him to reverse or hold on to, and hence unfortunately he is continuing with it. But
how long can he continue with it, sir?
well, I think sooner or later he will have
Because
to stop.
at the end of the day, sir, the private sector of India, which I really believe is one of the best, there's no doubt, in terms of doing business, in terms of, you know, looking into opportunities and all. Sir, they were of the opinion that India should have been a part of OBOR, because India would have benefited so much. I mean, currently they would end up having maybe some great jets, but they'll be obsolete maybe after 15, maybe 20 years. That's it. But this thing is permanent. This would have given them, I think they would have benefited more than Pakistan.
Certainly, but I think
But
India-
now they have taken a totally different, you know,
India
approach.
having clearly drifted onto the American camp, I think one reason for Indians not to accept to be part of this is the American obligation, and but I think the kind of shrewd business people they would clearly see through it as to what is in their interest, and while the standoff is continuing between China and India on the Ladakh border, the Indians clearly sensed that the Americans were more than keen that there should be some hot exchange take place. We should engage the Chinese, and for once the Indians showed pragmatism and did not let it escalate or aggravate to an extent where a heated exchange of firepower takes place. So that didn't happen. So that means that
But the kind
there
of
is
posture they are having against the Chinese, I mean, you know, deploying their Rafales for that matter in Mbala, and then, you know, increasing their troops on the border, and the kind of impression they are giving to the Indians. And look at their media. I mean, I don't know what their media is up to, but it seems that, you know, every day they would say, well, let's compare Su-30s with those jets, or J-20 versus this. And I
Well,
mean,
you
they
see,
are like,
I think it all emanates out of an impression, out of a dream, out of an illusion which has been created by Modi government in the eyes of its own people. That India has acquired a status of regional power and on the way to become a world power. And now the Indian people look at the government to stand up to the impression that they have created. And that is what actually forces not just the Indian government but also the media to follow this hegemonic approach even towards the Chinese as far as their border region is concerned. And of course, it is quite apparent that when you look at the record, the historical perspectives, that this was an area which was never demarcated, and the Chinese had always been asking the Indians to sit down and demarcate, but the Indians never went ahead with it. And they had a claim in their own mind which was not accepted by the Chinese, and they hoped that with the claim being so long in terms of time, it would be acceptable to the Chinese as well. But
they will not even leave a single inch.
Yes, and
This
that
is
didn't
what
happen.
China is all about.
So
They will not take yours, but they will never leave theirs as well.
So that is the impression that the Indian government has been creating in the minds of its own people, and it is not the public pressure, it is not the media pressure which is forcing the Indian government
So
to go
last
ahead with
quick
this.
30 seconds comment, because time is almost over, sir. I was just told. Sir, whatever development is taking place in the South China Sea or in the Ladakh region, or I mean, looking at the exchange of these statements, do you fear, maybe at a small scale, there could be a war, sir?
First of all, I would like to submit that we try to critically examine the India's foreign strategic policy, not what we think, what is reality. I have to correct that a private business in India supported BJP rather than opposed it.
Sir, those
In
people
2019.
Exactly.
So
You
that
talk
is number
about
one. Number
Ambanis, you
two,
talk about Mittals, you talk about anyone.
India infrastructure build up on the LAC is very strong, but that is the Chinese are also worried. But when we look about these development which you have referred, the problem with these strategic, you can say, activities is that initiating them is easy, but controlling their momentum or their driving them according to your own thing, that is sometimes certain what we call it systemic forces or those dynamism in those inside of these events that they get loose. That is the problem.
That is the threat also. And
That-
not
that is
only
the
for
problem
those two
exactly.
countries, for the entire region. And this could just explode, sir.
Yeah, you see, one should take notice of all that is happening, and the latest is that the Russians have brought the foreign ministers of India and
Primarily to diffuse the
to
situation.
diffuse and China to diffuse the situation, and they have decided to walk back virtually from the positions that they had taken, but they will maintain the LAC. So I think war, I don't see it yet. I don't see this.
Sir,
I agree with Ambassador Saab that there will be no war because both China and India do realize the catastrophic consequences of letting it go out of control, which is a very strong possibility of any such military conflict that erupts, that it is most likely that it will go out of control, and for which both the countries are not prepared. Much that the Americans would want it to happen.
because it is going to be a win-win situation for them. I mean, the two major countries following them in terms of economy, I mean, potential threat to the Americans.
And the encouraging
be
part is that when you read
taken
the
care of.
Indian media, you can clearly make out that the Indians are quite aware of this, of the American desire.
All right.
And so, which actually convinces
They're smart.
reader.
They understand that, they can go up to this level, but they will not cross the line.
Yes.
But anyway, AVM Saab, thank you very much. Ambassador, it was a pleasure. Professor Saab, thank you so much. And that's all we have for this hour. I'll see you tomorrow at 8 with a different topic, inshallah. Till then, you take good care of yourself. Khuda Hafiz from our side.